Hello and welcome to How to Program Python. In this video of control structures, we will be looking at lists, list operations, and list functions. Firstly, lists. A list is a type of object used in Python to store an indexed list of items. It's just basically a list of things. A list can contain types of any data type, unlike in other programming languages. In Python, you can have one list which contains integers, strings, characters, booleans, anything. A list is created using square brackets with commas separating the items. So to try this out, we can say, okay, I'm going to use the console again. My list equals to, and this is your list. Whatever you want, you put in between square brackets. So the first element, let's say 7. Then we can say 9 and 10. Then we could print this list. My list, and that would print your list 7, 9, 10. Then we can go back. A certain item in the list can be accessed by using its index in square brackets. So the thing in Python and in many programming languages, this first element is actually element 0. Then we have element 1, then element 2. We say that this list has 3 elements, so each item is an element, referred to as an element in the list. However, 3 elements, but you still say element 0, element 1, and element 2. Don't forget that. So you could say print my list. You need square brackets here before when you refer to an index. You could say 1, that it would print 9. You could say the same with 2, it would print 10, and the same with 0. That would printing 0, the element with the index 0 would print your first element, which is 7. If you were to print an element with an use an index that does not exist, such as 3, it would give you an error of list index out of range, because the range is from 0 up to 2. You have index 0, index 1, and index 2. Don't forget that the last index is always the number of elements in the list minus 1, and then each item in the list is referred to as an element of the list. Moving on, empty lists can also be created. To try this, let's try my empty list equals to, you just have to say 2 brackets, and that's it. Then you could say print my empty list, and that should print an empty list for you. Lists can also be nested within other lists, so that basically means if you have, let me say, list 2 equals, I'm creating a new list called list 2. You could have the first element say 3, the second element could be a string saying second, and your third element could actually be another list inside of a list. For that, you'd have to have your square brackets again. You could say 4, 6, and don't forget you'd have to close your square brackets again because you have 2 lists. We could say print list 2, the first element would print 3. If you did that with list 1, which is the second element, it would print second. If you did it with 3, however, 2 refers to actually the third element, which is actually a list of 4 and 6. So if you print a single element, in this case a list, it would print the whole list of 4 and 6. Moving on, we have strings can also behave as a list of characters. Each character in the string will act as an individual item in a list of characters. What that basically means is you could have a string, for example, called name equal to, I will say Leon again. This string variable can also be seen as a list of characters. So the first element in the list will be L, second will be E, third will be O, and fourth will be N. You can also index each letter as an element in each of the list. For example, print name 0 would print L. You could do that with 1, it would print E, 2 O, and 3 N. So a string can be seen as a list of characters, chars. Out of bound indexes will cause an index error, as we saw earlier. So list functions. The append method is used to add an item to the end of a list. So to try this, in this case, let's use myList. So just to see what myList has before we continue, it's a list with 7, 9, and 10. If I wanted to add an item or an element 11 to the list, I could say myList.append, and you could say 11. Oh, sorry. If you print myList again, you'd have 11 at the end of the list. So append is to add to the end of the list. Then you have the Len function. The Len function can be used to get the number of items in a list. In this case, it's quite easy to see 1, 2, 3, 4. However, if you had huge lists, you wouldn't be able to count them, or it would be impractical to count all of them. So what you would do there is I'm going to create another list, my list, well, actually the same name, but I'm going to do it again, equals to, we could say 5, 4, 7, 6. So here we have our list. So we could print out the number of items in the list, in this list, by saying print len, then you insert the name of your list, which is my list in this case. So this would print out the number of items in this list, the number of elements, which is 4, as you can see here. Although our range of indexes goes from 0 to 3, the number of items is still 4. The insert method is used to insert an item at a specific position in a list. To try this, we could say myList.insert. Now first you'd have to enter the index you want to insert this element at. If I would like to insert it between 5 and 4, that means I would like to insert it at index 1 as the second element, which is index 1. I would have to say 1, comma, whatever I want to insert into the index. So let me insert a string which says 10. So they have inserted it. If I print my list now, I would have 5, 10, 4, 7, 6. I could insert it at the beginning. Then I'd have to say 0. And let me change this to tent, for example. And if I print it, I'd have tent, 5, 10, 4, 7, 6. Please note that whichever element occupied the position prior to you inserting the new element moves 1 index up. For example, in this case, the 5, which occupied index 0, moved to index 1 when you inserted tent at index 0. Then we have the index method finds the index of the first occurrence of a list item and returns this index. This is basically to get the index of a certain item. We do this by saying, for example, if I want to get the index of 10 of my list, the index is actually 2, 0, 1, 2. But if I didn't know, I would say print my list dot index brackets. In the brackets I would mention whatever I want the index of, in this case 10. This would print 2 for me. I could do the same with, say, 6. It would print 5 because it is at element index 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Please note, if there were recurring elements in this list, it would print the index of the first occurrence of whatever you type in here. If the item is not in the list, it raises a value error. For example, if I said 20, it should print 20 is not in the list. Max returns the list item. Let me just create another my list here with elements in random order: 4, 2, 7, 1, 9, 8. If I use the max statement or the max function, I can get the element which is the maximum in the list, the highest element in the list. For example, max my list. This is how you use the max function. It would print 9 because in this list 9 is the maximum. I could use or say the same with min. It would print 1. Then we have min returns the list item with the minimum value. Count returns a count of how many times a certain item appears in a list. For example, let me just make a list 2 with recurring elements, and I could say 5, 4, 3, 5, 7, 5, 7. Then I could say print list2 dot count. I could count the number of 5s. This would print 3 because there are 3 5s in this list. If I said print list2 dot count 7, it would print 2 because there are 2 7s in that list. Remove removes an item from a list. It works almost in the same way as the count. However, instead of count, you would have remove. Let me also remove 4 in this list, and it returns none. If I were to then print list 2, there we have it, 5, 3, 5, 5, 7. So when we removed 7, it removed the first 7. There were 2 7s, it removes the first one it finds. Then we removed 4, so then we have 5, 3, 5, 5, 7 remaining. Reverses the order of a list. So in this case our order is 5, 3, 5, 5, 7. We could say list2 dot reverse. Oh, sorry, I forgot my brackets. Please don't forget your brackets. That should reverse the list. Then we could print the list, and now we have 7, 5, 5, 3, 5. The reverse function actually changes the whole list. It doesn't just print it out in reverse order. It changes the list's order. So now the list is like that forever, or until you change it again.